From miles and miles of deserted city streets in the Mojave Desert to the tallest deserted structure in the entire globe, and an eerily vacant ghost city full of hundreds of identical deserted houses, our most pointless megaproject is now in its third installment. California City is located in one of the driest and harshest regions of the country. With a land area of up to 500 square kilometers in the Mojave Desert, California City is the third largest city in California by land area. It was an unsuccessful attempt to build the country's next major metropolis to compete with Los Angeles or New York. Nathan K. Mendelsohn is credited with founding the city. Professor of sociology at Columbia University, Mendelsohn was a Czech-born specialist in town and village planning. With a large number of military sites and defense equipment, California saw economic growth following World War II. Since California received consistent financing from the federal government, hundreds of thousands of people began to move there in search of better possibilities. Mendelsohn bought 30,000 hectares of property in the midst of the Mojave in 1958 in order to take advantage of this quick growth. His goal was to turn the barren wasteland into a thriving suburbia that could compete with Los Angeles, which was located just 150 kilometers to the south but of all locations. Mendelsohn had a purpose for establishing his metropolis in the middle of the desert. There were two of them. First, desert acreage outside of major cities like San Francisco or Los Angeles was quite affordable. Mendelsohn made a decision later. His settlement was built on a very specific piece of Mojave terrain. As soon as it was discovered that there was an underground lake, this groundwater would have been able to supply all of the city's water requirements, as water was scarce in that location. Mendelsohn assumed leadership of the newly formed California City Development Company. The development of California City was to be supervised and managed by the CCDC. To persuade potential buyers to buy land and property, the master plan for the city's development was already in full gear by 1961. The city's focal point, a central park, was constructed alongside a man-made lake. Other attractions, including 2 golf courses and a 4-story motel next to the park, were also built during this time. Along with building out the infrastructure, Mendelsohn promoted the California City intensively in the Los Angeles Times throughout the early 1960s. He described the development and referred to it as an investment that was worthwhile. It's the biggest community in the U.S. and a massive undertaking. Additionally, promoting the city through a real estate school that would educate students and grant them licenses to sell land was a component of the Mendelsohn's campaign. However, 7 years after the city's founding, despite all of Mendelsohn's development and promotion efforts, it only had a total of little more than 800 residents. Empty lots of land dot the desert, much of the city's territory remaining underdeveloped. Despite the low-price landscape, few people took a chance on Mendelsohn's promise of the next large metropolis in America. Mendelsohn sold a majority of his firm's stock in 1969. He began to see that his fantasy of a busy city in the desert was gradually disappearing as sales began to decline. The Federal Trade Commission also began looking into charges of fraud and corruption around this period. The FTC issued a cease and desist order for deceptive advertising in 1972. This happened as a result of the real estate school's limited purpose, which was to sell land parcels in a Californian city, rather than to genuinely prepare students for careers as real estate brokers. The FTC also determined that the site was encumbered, and the majority of the facilities and infrastructure that had been offered had not yet been built. After constant but modest growth for over 6 decades, with a population of 15,000, California City has a single McDonald's, a Starbucks, and a few strip stores lining its main boulevard, which experiences little traffic during the entire day. The little community is connected to the rest of California by a small airport and a frequent bus service. The city's primary source of employment, meanwhile, is a privately held prison on the underdeveloped east side of the city. The traces of California City's ambitious history can still be seen today, despite the fact that from above it may appear to be your typical American rural town. East of the city, a sizable portion of the area is still undeveloped. Dirt roads create a large, pointless grid that would have been the basic structure of the metropolis that Mendelsohn had in mind. The plumbing system from the 1960s is still in place, but is now very expensive for the local authorities to maintain. Despite the fact that Mendelsohn's dream did not materialize, the California City is now again receiving attention due to a resurgence of interest in its distinctive past. The city has captured the attention of online publications, artists, and photographers. The future of this incomplete metropolis will only become clear with time. Furthermore, much of California City is still a pointless megaproject in the middle of the desert as of right now. The second tallest abandoned structure in the world, at 600 meters tall. In Tianjin, the Golden Finance 117 China built a record that it, quite honestly, never wanted to hold in the first place, the tallest empty building in the world. The tower would have been the third tallest skyscraper in China and the sixth tallest in the entire world, when development was eventually abandoned. Early in the 2000s, when many Chinese cities were vying for recognition and glory abroad through rapid infrastructure development, the first drafts of the tower's building plans were made. Billionaire Pat Sutton, chairman of the Hong Kong-based investment firm Golden Financial Holdings, was the brains behind the initiative. Golden Finance 117 and the central skyscraper were to be the focal points of Golden Metropolitan, a 1.8 square kilometer luxury residential and commercial zone situated just outside of downtown Palm. It was planned to establish a number of homes and businesses there. The tower would have 128 floors above ground, with 117 floors having a mix of residential and business uses. The 11 additional floors are reserved for operational and mechanical systems. The design for Golden Finance 117 also called for a 3-story diamond-shaped roof, which is a well-known architectural feature. At a height of 580 meters above the ground, this area would hold the highest observation deck, swimming pool, and restaurant in the world. The tower's construction started in 2008, and it is expected to be finished in 2014. However, with many other assets and interests in the West to take care of, building on the tower was paused in early 2010, immediately after the global financial crisis. The tower's development was put on hold because Golden had to temporarily reduce expenditures elsewhere. When the market at lastly reached stability, the skyscraper was supposed to debut in 2018 after construction was resumed in 2011. The skyscraper structure was finished in September 2015 when the building was officially topped out. It would have been appropriate to celebrate now, but sadly for Sutton and the Golden Company, everything was about to go south. The Chinese stock market crashed in June 2015, and the price of gold shares fell by as much as 67%. In the wake of this catastrophe, Sutton, who held a sizable share in the business, lost as much as $13 billion. Only 3 months after the structure was finished, Golden abruptly put an end to any further progress on the project. Even though it would appear that poor market timing and finance contributed to Golden Finance 117's failure, the situation is not entirely resolved by it. The skyscraper was destined to fail from the start of construction 14 years ago. Everything about the project, from the opulent amenities to the concept of living in one of the world's tallest buildings, painted Golden Finance 117 as a luxury, something that was intended for the wealthy. Even if the project had been finished, Tianjin didn't have the target market that the skyscraper was aiming for. Nobody who lived close to the project couldn't actually afford what it was trying to give, and it's doubtful that wealthy Chinese would have traveled to Tianjin from elsewhere merely to live in a tower that tall. The structure is still standing as it is right now. The project's contractor has entirely left the job site, taking all personnel and tools with them. The Golden Finance 117 is now prominently visible above Angina, and continues to be an empty piece of concrete that has never been inhabited. It is likely to remain that way for many years to come. Burj Alba is ranked first. Nestle is a fascinating and unsettling location in northwestern Turkey, close to the charming city of Maderni. There is not a single person to be seen among the countless numbers of deserted chateau-style residences that dot the hilly countryside. Burj Al Bayadis was intended to be a posh housing complex targeted for affluent oil executives, but it was never completed. The apartment complex was under construction when it was first planned to be finished in 4 years, in 2014. The idea was to build 732 of these aesthetically similar villas, which would then be rented or sold to affluent people. Each villa had 3 levels, a balcony all to itself, and a spiral staircase leading up to it. Homeowners have the option to add an indoor pool in their traditional Turkish interiors. The concept also included a central shopping area with stores, dining options, salons, spas, a movie theater, and a mosque. Additionally, the Burj Alba Bast Construction's construction site is situated atop a geothermal spring. So it was intended to build a classic Turkish bath over the hot springs, among the many amenities the development provided to potential buyers. According to reports, the cost of each villa ranged from $400,000 to $500,000. The thought was that the project's target market, wealthy Gulf investors, would be interested in the properties. Initially, the project appeared to be progressing rather well because investors had already provided funding for about half of all the homes. But by 2018, just 587 of the 732 villas that were originally slated to be built had actually been put up. Investors in Burj Al Babas were negatively impacted by the rapid drop in oil prices of the same year that the global oil market collapsed. The fact that Turkey's economy was already having trouble and had the highest inflation rate in 15 years, up to 25%, made matters worse. The action was motivated, according to Governor Marish, by both rising oil prices and the falling mirror. The majority of Burj Al Babas customers quickly backed out of the project. Due to the country's economic position, Turkey's building industry experienced a significant decline with a project worth $200 million. Additionally, the business behind the Burj saw little to no sales. All of us observed that they were now $27 million in debt and in a very bad situation. The project's work was halted at the same time as a Turkish court ordered the company to declare bankruptcy and file for bankruptcy. The developer attempted to appeal this decision and claimed that they could resolve the situation by selling only 100 villas to cover their debt. I think we can resolve this situation in 4 to 5 months and launch the project in stages in 2019. Burj Al Babas continues to exist as a ghost town in the magnificent environment of northwestern Turkey. Of course, this never ever happened. No villa has ever been completely built, and the project has been abandoned for the past 3 years. The project was abandoned so long ago that some of the numerous homes are now collapsing and being destroyed by the elements. 3 years have now gone since Burj Al Babas construction ceased, and no further developer has dared to take it farther. Over the coming years, this project's fate is still up in the air. The website will continue to exist for the time being. Nothing but dozens of villas that all look the same. What are your thoughts on these massive projects? Do you anticipate them ever being finished? Please share with us in the comments section below. We appreciate you viewing, and we'll see you in the following video.